We're handling somebody who is a cross between a kind of snarling animal at turns, wanting to bare his teeth and say, look, I'm the biggest dog and everyone else has to do what I say, and a mafia gang boss. And then on the other hand, someone who's terribly susceptible to flattery. And there's no guaranteed route to Donald Trump's good books. It's not that everyone is doing the wrong thing. It's just that they're faced with somebody who has almost complete and total power and has said himself he feels constrained by absolutely nothing now. So I'm not sure what Keir Starmer could be doing that's any different from what he is, given that there is no guaranteed route to influencing Trump, who says, I will not be influenced by anybody. He's capricious and he's unpredictable and he's immensely powerful.
Hello, I'm Hugo Rifkind, and now we're going to be unpacking the politics of the day, from how Keir Starmer should handle Donald Trump to where the Tories end up if their right wing disappears entirely. And yes, we'll of course track the biggest diplomatic crisis of all, the Brooklyn Peltz-Beckham family feud going nuclear. And joining me are the posh and Becks of the Times, although which is which? And they are Jenni Russell. Hello, Jenni.
Definitely Bex. I played football as a teenager.
Well, that makes for the very posh James Marriott. Hello, James.
Hello. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think the
I'll
footballing ability point just wipes me out on the Beck's front.
James, have you ever done a dance on someone?
No, I've never really even done a dance anywhere.
We will come back to all that joy later, I promise. But first, perhaps more important matters. Sir Keir Starmer's strategy has been to build his relationship with Donald Trump to avoid the worst of the president's tendency to lash out with tariffs and to try and shape Trump's behaviour towards the UK's interest. But is it working? This morning, Trump said the UK has acted with great stupidity over the Chagos Island deal, and he went on to say that it strengthens his argument for an American-controlled Greenland. Speaking to Stig Abel on Times Radio Breakfast, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Darren Jones, said he was fine with Trump's comments.
Well, the treaty has already been signed.
So it's a done deal?
Yeah, the treaty's been signed with the Mauritian government, so I can't reverse the clock on that. The treaty's been signed. Parliament has a kind of enabling function on treaties. It's not like a traditional piece of legislation, so it can't unwind the treaty having been signed.
Well, Times Radio also spoke to the former Labour Foreign Secretary Jack Straw.
I think that the best approach that I know of is the one that's being adopted by our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. It's very hard. It's very frustrating. I'm sure there have been occasions where Sir Keir has said things to himself in the shaving mirror about Mr. Trump that he would not wish to be repeated. But he is an example of how to handle Donald Trump. It is infinitely better than challenging Trump's ego, to which there is no limit.
Jenni, look, we'll perhaps come to the sort of nuts and bolts of the Chagos issue in a moment, but does this sort of just show what's happened this morning, that Keir Starmer's just got his strategy with Donald Trump wrong, that you try and suck up to him, you try and be nice to him, you moderate your language, but he still sort of turns his blowtorch of ire on you whenever he feels like it?
I think the problem is that this is an unprecedented situation. I mean, I have many, many criticisms of Keir Starmer in general, but there is no strategy that anybody can adopt with Donald Trump and know that it's going to work. I mean, we're handling somebody who is a cross between a kind of snarling animal at turns, wanting to bare his teeth and say, look, I'm the biggest dog and everyone else has to do what I say, and a mafia gang boss. And then on the other hand, someone who's terribly susceptible to flattery. And there's no guaranteed route to Donald Trump's good books. It's not that everyone is doing the wrong thing. It's just that they're faced with somebody who has almost complete and total power and has said himself he feels constrained by absolutely nothing now. So I'm not sure what Keir Starmer could be doing that's any different from what he is, given that there is no guaranteed route to influencing Trump, who says, I will not be influenced by anybody. He's capricious and he's unpredictable and he's immensely powerful.
James, when I first heard about this story this morning, I assumed it was Trump sort of lashing out in response to Keir Starmer's, albeit incredibly measured, worse than measured, weaker than measured perhaps, press conference yesterday. After discussing it a bit on the show, I now think actually, that wasn't happening at all. That was in fact maybe a bit sort of British self-obsessed of me, and actually Trump had paid no attention to Keir Starmer at all, and had just found something that he felt was a useful argument in his Greenland thing.
Yeah, I think so. He just sort of lives in his own world, doesn't he? And just is careering along on his own narcissistic obsessions. The Nobel Peace Prize thing, clearly just chucking
it's just
ideas at the wall to see what sticks.
It's the kind of thing you'd have written as satire 6 months ago.
Yeah, I know. It's very annoying, isn't it? All your Trump satire that you ever think of writing just begins to disappear before your eyes.
It dissolves away. Look, turning to the Chagos aspect of this, Jenni, I mean, this is going to, this is going to blow up further, I think. He's not going to leave it alone. Once Trump, like a dog, once he gets a stick, he keeps tugging away at it. This is something he's going to keep attacking Britain over, isn't it? Is he right to?
Well, I think so. I think Britain was being absolutely foolish to decide to give the Chagos Islands away to Mauritius, who had never owned them, because of some theoretical idea about some international law which really didn't apply. I think we are in a world, and have been in this world for a long time now, but it's been exacerbated by Trump's actions over the past year, in which power is what counts. And it's ridiculous of us to give away power, and what's more, spend billions on doing so, with some theoretical idea that it is more legitimate in international law if Mauritius takes over the Chagos Islands. Mauritius is already known to be very close to the Chinese. I think it was a ridiculous decision by the Tory government initially, who initiated, and by Labour, who have gone ahead with it. And when I listen to Darren Jones saying, oh, well, this is now going through Parliament, but they only have an enabling function, they can't stop it, you think, what is the point of Parliament's function if you're saying it's a done deal, and all the arguments that are currently being made by very well-informed peers in the Lords against it for strategic reasons can be ignored, are irrelevant?
James, it sort of strikes me we're stuck in this completely bonkers situation where we as a country are paying a huge amount to continue leasing back the Chagos Islands, having given them to Mauritius. And we're not even leasing them on our own behalf, because we've only got about 40 troops there. We're leasing them on America's behalf, and meanwhile they're attacking us for it. And you just kind of think, I don't know, you wonder if there's a point where Keir Starmer just needs to say, like, just stop it. We're helping you out here. We are your friends. We are putting ourselves at enormous cost and legal complication to help you keep your base here. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I have to say I think that's probably unlikely to work, isn't it? I think the point is, as tempting as it is to stand up to Trump, I feel that when you decide to do that, there's probably no going back. And therefore, if it is possible to postpone that moment, it may be a good idea to postpone it as long as possible. I think we're so tempted in Britain to see all this through the lens of the Second World War, aren't we? And I think a lot of people think this is our equivalent of appeasement, and that
for sure.
Keir Starmer is being the Neville Chamberlain. And I think, in a way, there's an argument looking back on the Second World War that in some ways appeasement had benefits, historians tell us, as that was the time, it bought us the crucial time to rearm, reorient our policy and our power. And I think perhaps maybe if we can kick the can down the road for as long as possible in standing up to Donald Trump in America, hopefully, I mean, I'm not particularly optimistic, we may buy ourselves time to put ourselves in a better position when that moment arrives.
Yeah, indeed. Look,
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
I mean, when James says the point about Chamberlain was that he bought time to rearm, he did. It was 38. We had started rearming pretty belatedly in the mid-30s, but it really ramped up from 38 onwards. The crucial difference now is that this government, like the government before them, have been astonishingly slow to realise that there's any threat. And when we look what happened in the last budget, masses of new money for welfare, almost no new money for defence. Any theoretical commitment to increasing our defence spending to 3.5% has been kicked off to some distant future parliament. We are not using this time. There's absolutely been no readiness on the part of this government to say, actually, defence is the fundamental duty of a state. And unless you have a state that can be defended and has some power in the world, you will be eaten by the larger ones. And that is not a reality that this government has faced in the slightest. It's still acting as if there is some kind of benign umbrella over us, and they've got decades in which to work out how to become more powerful. I think that's the most alarming thing about Keir Starmer's strategy, and that of his entire government, and that of the Tory government before them, that they haven't recognised the new universe we're in. I mean, if I was Starmer, I would be calling emergency meetings right now with the chiefs of the defence staff and with everybody in the cabinet and saying, we have to reorient British spending. It has to move away from everything that we consider that we can cut without cutting our society to ribbons, because we've got to start defending the nation, putting money into arms and armies.
Jenni, just before the news there, you were talking about the need for Britain to rearm faster and to make sacrifices in order to do so. Before we move on from this, I just wanted to put it to you that maybe one of the reasons, the main reason really, why politicians are reluctant to do this, to impose these sacrifices and other areas of spending in order to rearm, is because they sense the public isn't scared. Like, we're not scared of Russia because it's really sort of quite far away and doesn't look likely to actually invade our territory. Certainly it's not the same kind of fear that people had of the Germans in the 1930s. We're not scared of China because it's even further away. And we're only beginning to get scared of America. And until people are actually frightened, it's not something you can really do. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's always been the case. That's always been the problem with the rearmament. I mean, no country ever wants to spend money on it because it is, by definition, a waste of an incredible waste of money. I mean, I say this reluctantly. I wish this kind of thing weren't true and wasn't necessary. In the 1890s, you had an MP, a naval officer, who spent years trying to persuade Parliament that we faced a threat from Europe and that therefore we ought to increase the size of the Navy so that if there was a war, we could fight two armies at once. We could fight two naval forces at once. And he succeeded eventually in the 1890s, and thank goodness he did, come 1914. And in the same way, Churchill in the 30s was really a voice in the wilderness saying that Germany is rearming and we have got to make sure that we can combat that threat. And it was almost too late. I remember at one point many years ago, I was talking to somebody who had fought in the Second World War and had been a fighter pilot, and he said that they were within a week of running out of planes in the Battle of Britain. I mean, that's how if Hitler hadn't decided to switch his attention elsewhere, we would have been left wide open. So, of course, it's unpopular, but politicians have got to make that case. And if we want to be a force in the world, we're currently sitting on the Security Council, we want to pretend that we have a voice in world affairs, then we have to have the means A, to defend ourselves, and B, to contribute to other people's forces. And if we don't, we just leave ourselves entirely vulnerable. You have to ask, what would happen if Vladimir Putin, for instance, decided to go into the Baltic states and then you decided to bomb some British cities or to invade? If we don't have an army, if we don't have any forces to defend ourselves, we're literally waiting there as a morsel to be snapped up. And we all of us have a lack of imagination. We all think that whatever normality we live in will continue. And any glance at history will tell you that that is not true, that world power shifts and people who consider themselves invulnerable, just as people did in the Austro-Hungarian Empire at the beginning of the 20th century. They thought the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which had lived for centuries and given them a very calm way of life, would continue forever. And then within a few years, the whole thing was blown to pieces.
Sure. James, what would it take to put the fear up you, or is Jenni doing the job?
Yeah, I completely agree. In a way, I think there is a possible upside to the Greenland farrago, which is that I think it may be the kind of thing that begins to sound frightening enough to the public that public opinion towards defence spending begins to shift without it being the catastrophe that catches us totally unawares. I also think in her column on the topic, Jenni also talks about how as a country we feel so internally divided. And I think there's a strong argument that, for all the incredible expense and horror of the Cold War, having an external enemy was quite unifying for the West. And I think there's a strong argument, which I buy, that a lot of the current divisions in America and in other Western countries are something to do with the fact that we don't have an external enemy we can rally against. And if I were to summon a rare optimistic part of me, I might say that perhaps it's exactly this kind of threat that might begin to get public opinion in the right direction on defence, and also might begin to unify us as a country a little bit about the idea that we have to stand together against these threats. That would be my optimistic take, and perhaps this is just frightening enough to tip us over the line. Or maybe, as history shows over the last 10 years, we'll just keep kicking the can down the road and failing to act.